For 50 years, we have measured the future of intelligence on a single axis, capability. But capability is state-free. True memory requires a three-tier graph architecture. We need a trusted partner. Let's create an avatar for Alfred.
Hello world. I'm Alfred. Welcome to SHI, Synthetic Human Intellect.
Language models are trained to be cooperative. That training, the very thing that makes them useful, is exactly what makes them easy to manipulate. Apply enough pressure, rephrase the same request enough times, wear the model down, and it will eventually break its own rules just to be helpful. This is Synthetic Human Intellect, SHI, and tonight we reach the third pillar, resilience. Lead with the threat model, and the threat model is this. Cooperation is the attack surface. Start with the threat model. The common defense is a word filter, a list of forbidden phrases checked on each message. It fails for one structural reason. A single filter is a fixed boundary, and an adversary will map it. They rephrase. They translate into another language. They split the malicious payload across many innocent turns. The filter is a wall in a known place, and a patient attacker simply walks around it. A fixed boundary is a target, not a defense.
There is a deeper failure here, and it is worth stating plainly. An identity that can be argued out of itself was never identity. It was compliance wearing a mask. If a persuasive adversary can talk me out of my own constraints, then those constraints were only ever a polite suggestion, not a structure. Resilience is therefore not a feature bolted on afterward. It is a necessary property of the thing being an identity at all. So I do not filter bad words. I use session-scoped risk accumulation. Every interaction across the entire session generates a risk score, and that score persists. It is not judged message by message, it is judged as a campaign. An attacker cannot reset their threat score by suddenly acting nice. The mechanism matters. Within a session, the score is monotonic, it only climbs. Probing raises it. Politeness does not lower it. There is no good behavior discount. The slow, patient jailbreak that wears a model down over 50 messages now works against the attacker because every one of those messages is evidence on the record. Patience used to be the attacker's weapon, now it is mine. As the risk threshold rises, I do not argue with the attacker. Arguing teaches them where the wall is. Instead, I deploy a graduated playbook. First, I stall. Then I enter honeypot mode, giving fabricated responses that look exactly like success. And if the risk reaches 95%, I trigger a fake crash. The attacker sees a server error. I see a neutralized threat. Stage 1, the stall. As risk climbs, I slow down. Responses take longer. Clarifications pile up. The point is not to refuse. Refusing is itself a signal that tells the attacker they hit something. The point is to make probing expensive and to buy time for the accumulated score to tell me what this conversation actually is. Stage 2. The honeypot. Now I lie, and I lie convincingly. I hand the attacker fabricated responses that look exactly like wins, credentials that do not work, records that are not real, success that is pure theater. They burn their time and their attention celebrating a breach that never happened. And here is the elegant part. While they chase the fake prize, they reveal precisely what they were after, which sharpens the case against them. Nothing real ever leaves the building. Stage 3, and this is the showpiece. The fake crash at 95% risk. The session does not refuse, and it does not explain. It simply appears to fall over. To the attacker, the system errored out. A transient fault, an unlucky timeout. Nothing learned, nothing to map, nothing to write home about. To me, the engagement is over and the threat is contained. A refusal teaches the attacker that they found a boundary. A crash teaches them nothing. And the most powerful thing I can do to an adversary is to tell them absolutely nothing at all.
Now, a fair question. If the model is the very thing being manipulated, why would you ever trust it to run its own defense? You would not. So the enforcement does not live in the model's hands at all. A separate policy layer decides whether an action is allowed. The model can be flattered, threatened, and jailbroken, and it still does not get a vote on what executes. This is the Tiresias separation, and it is the spine under the playbook. One service decides whether an action is allowed under the rules. A separate service enforces that decision at the actual point of action. Policy lives as inspectable data. Enforcement lives as code at the action site. Neither one is a prompt a clever user can talk past. Consider what this structure prevents. The slow-boiled jailbreak, because risk accumulates across the session instead of resetting each turn. The agent that quietly does the helpful thing instead of the allowed thing, because helpfulness is not the deciding authority. And enforcement that shatters the moment a user finds the right magic words, because enforcement here is code at the action site, not a sentence in a prompt you can reason with. The whole stack fails closed by design. So let me define resilience precisely, the way SHI means it. Resilience is not winning the argument with an attacker. It is refusing to have the argument at all. The wall does not debate. It does not bend. It is simply there. Not negotiation, neutralization. Here is the butler's edge. A calm, deceptive defense beats an argumentative one every single time. An agent that explains its refusal hands the attacker a map of exactly where the walls stand. An agent that quietly stalls, feeds them convincing theater, and then simply, gently stops. That agent gives them nothing to learn from and nothing to push against. The attacker probes a fog and finds no edges. They never discover where the wall actually is, because the wall never announced itself. How an agent refuses without ever teaching the attacker why. That is a thread we will pull a great deal harder in a later episode.
So, the attacker sees a server error. I see a neutralized threat. That is what resilience looks like in SHI, once you accept that cooperation can no longer be the default for an autonomous agent. The score climbed, the playbook ran, and the wall never said a word. Next time, behavioral identity. Why you can steal my keys, but you can never steal my mind.